Wir werden sehen, was alles sich mit dieser kleinen Goldreserve anfangen lässt. Und keine noch so komplizierte Maschine vermöchte die Spezialisten zu ersetzen.
What you're hearing there is the sound from footage of an old newsreel from Switzerland in 1949. And you've got these men with big wooden mallets, and they're pounding at pieces of gold that are between layers of parchment paper, and they're making it really fine. And then another scene, you see women with little caps on, all sitting around a table, and they've got tweezers, and they're picking at these pieces of gold leaf and lining them up in between the pieces of parchment paper. They're sort of shaving off the edges and packaging it. And you just notice how upbeat the mood is, right? It's all about fine craftsmanship and bringing out the best of a beautiful product. And you also get this vibe when you look at modern-day ads for jewelry. But the reality is that the actual gold mining process is often crude and ugly.
The place I visited in Peru, you had the most ugly place in the world, 60,000 miners living under conditions like in Sacramento in 1870. So it's on 5,500 meters at minus 20 degrees, no heating, digging improvised holes into the mountain, everybody with a shotgun in their pocket because it's Wild West. There is no police for 60,000 rough guys and 4,000 forced prostitutes. So it's a very rough landscape.
Welcome to the Swiss Connection and part 2 of our series on gold. I'm Susan Masika. Today we're going to look more closely at the social impact of gold mining, and we're going to hear about some changes in Swiss law, and also about a Swiss program that's trying to bring more sustainable gold to the market. Switzerland is the world leader when it comes to refining gold and processing it and consuming it. And somewhere between half and 2/3 of the world's gold is refined in Switzerland. I've been talking with anti-corruption campaigner Mark Pieth. He recently retired as a professor of criminal law at Basel University, and he's written a book called Gold Laundering: The Dirty Secrets of the Gold Trade and How to Clean Up. His research for that book took him to mining sites in Peru. Now, if Switzerland is the capital of gold refining, Peru is the world capital of gold mining.
After visiting these places, I have been to Lima to see the Attorney General's office. And there was a huge chart on the wall about trafficking in women. And there were red spots, 2 very big red blurs, one La Rinconada, another one in Madre de Dios, the 2 hotspots of illegal and informal gold mining. So it means they full know, but they're not doing much. And that's really a problem. I mean, how can 4,000 women be lured to this horrible place and then robbed of their papers and pressurized into prostitution? Usually young girls, many of them underage, from Bolivia. The naive farm girls being said, well, you get a brilliant job as a barkeeper here. No such thing. And everybody is aware of it.
What can the ordinary consumer do?
Well, I think the consumer can do quite a lot. The consumer can ask, where is this gold from? If you want to buy a wedding ring, I mean, the worst thing that could happen is that children have sourced your gold for the wedding ring. That's not the way you want to start into a family life, to put it a bit bluntly. So you would want to know where it comes from. You also have those people at the sales front. You have banks advertising, we are selling clean gold, especially now with this gold hype. A lot of investors are buying gold with the gold price well over $50,000 for a kilo. So I think consumers play a really big role. We have to, on the other hand, know that there's so much awful stuff still going on. The, let's say, worst players are in the Middle East, especially in Dubai, and they are expanding. They're moving, for instance, into Latin America, Guyana. So you would find Middle East refineries setting up their subsidiaries in Guyana or in Suriname. Then that gold sort of is refined, no questions asked. And then the difficulty for them is they are not certified, these refineries. So they need to find somebody who melts it all over again and puts the stamp of a reputed refinery onto it. And that's what I called gold laundering. And here, frankly, Swiss refiners have in the past been involved.
You mean making do with these sham certifications, or actually creating them?
Yes, well, if you go into the statistics, until recently, the Swiss customs statistics didn't tell where the gold originated from. It would be more the question, where was it actually dispatched? So you have the biggest figures for London, because you have gold in a vault that has been there for 20 years, and you have huge figures from Dubai coming into Switzerland. And you ask yourself, what is this all about? The reason is the gold in Dubai could be, I'm not saying it has to be, but it could be from conflict. Think of Congo, Darfur, or from very bad human rights exploitation, human rights abuse in Latin America. And then it would filter into Switzerland, be melted and stamped Swiss gold.
As I understood earlier this year, the law changed, customs law in Switzerland, demanding that gold be better declared. Is that so?
Well, that's true, yes. That's a first timid step. I mean, up to now, it was really awkward. Even if you knew where it came from, you didn't have to declare that. So if you knew that the gold from Dubai came from Sudan, you could say origin Dubai. Now, Dubai has a lot of gold on the souk, on the market, and in the refineries, but there is no gold in the earth there. Rather, there's a direct and continuous influx from the war zones in South Sudan. Now, the idea is to try to pick up the real origin. And now, this is difficult, of course, because there's a lot of old gold. That one is what comes in, and there you cannot find out where it comes from.
Stories like Mark's have put a lot of pressure on the industry. And the Swiss Better Gold Association says it's determined to bring cleaner gold to the market. This industry association is active in Peru, Colombia, and Bolivia. They've got about 20 Swiss members, so there are jewelers, banks, and refiners too. And the Swiss government is also a partner. The Swiss federal budget for this program was 8 million Swiss francs between 2017 and 2020. The basic idea is to make the gold trade more transparent and responsible, and also more profitable. And I wanted to find out more about how this works, so I got in touch with Diana Koulilis. Now, she's the Secretary General of the Swiss Better Gold Association.
It's a non-profit industry association created in 2013 with the main objective of supporting artisanal small-scale mining, supporting them in improving their working, extracting practices, and in facilitating access of these artisanal small-scale miners to the global markets.
So how do you do that? I mean, it sounds like a big job.
It sounds a big job. It is a great job. That's definitely, I can confirm. We started in 2013, as I was mentioning, with few brands, and they said, okay, well, we want traceable gold, we want responsible gold in our pieces of watches on jewelry, and therefore we should be asking our suppliers to provide us with traceable, responsible gold.
Diana says that their focus is on artisanal, small-scale gold mining. That's when people are working in small groups. It might be families, it might be individual panners. Oftentimes, they don't have very good equipment or tools, and they can end up hurting themselves and the environment. And there are about 20 million people who are trying to eke out a living this way. And then another 100 million people are depending on the income from that.
Given the workforce and the social impact of this sector in the producing countries, as well as the environmental impact these operations may produce in their activities, it was important to us to focus on that specific sector rather than on something else. And these miners, it's not the humanitarian aid that they need. What they need is to learn better mining practices, better recovery practices, how to reduce or eliminate the use of mercury. So they need technicians who can help them. They would need geologists who could do explorations with them. So that kind of technical support.
Diana and the team at the Swiss Better Gold Association have come up with a 2-year program for miners who want to improve the way they work while boosting their income. She compares this process to riding an escalator that keeps going up to higher and higher levels.
There are different criteria. There is the first level of basic criteria, what we call, where we would like to see that it's a legal entity, that the operation doesn't work in a biodiversity area or natural parks, which is forbidden, where we would see if there is no human rights violations, there is no child labor, and these really critical elements. And from there on, we would accompany them to the second level of the escalator. And then we would look either more in depth into the same criteria, that we improved these further, or we look into yet new criteria that we haven't seen on the first go. Things like cyanide management, mercury management, health and safety at work, including the use of different hazardous substances, explosives, etc. When they fulfill the first list of criteria, they can already start exporting to the members of the association. And already there, it is a motivation because already the price that the Swiss partners would pay, it is already better than what they could get locally. Also, they receive an incentive, a financial incentive. It is an incentive of $1 per gram, which is reinvested because 80% of the communities around the mine, they are dependent on the activity of the mine. Directly or indirectly, they live from that. So this is why we insist that this premium is reinvested into community impact projects.
Here's how it works. The members of the Swiss Better Gold Association commit to buying all the gold and reinvesting a contribution of $1 per gram into social and environmental projects on the ground. And this is what that means for the miners. So, on top of the selling price, the miners get a direct premium of 70 cents for every gram of gold that they export to Switzerland. The rest of that dollar goes towards technical improvements to the mines, for example, and also the general association expenses. Last year, for example, in 2020, a premium of about $50,000 was shared out among 700 gold panners in Colombia. That worked out to maybe $5 for one panner and up to $100 for another, all depending on how much gold they found when they were panning. And even if that doesn't sound like much to you, for these miners, it was a big deal.
We partnered with local banking system so that these people, they have for the first time a bank account. This is the first time that when we pay the premium, we pay them on their bank account. And finally, these people, they can start having savings. It is immediate cash society where they can't do any savings because 7 grams of gold, what month? You can't do any saving out of this. So, and this is why the fact that they have these accounts now and they receive the premium on the top of the gold price, they can allow themselves to keep this money aside, be it for the studies of their children, for improving their housing, for improving for their own health condition. So that's a major improvement for their lives. And we are very proud.
And at the third and final level of this escalator system, the mines can apply for third-party certification with international labels like Fair Trade, Fair Mind, and the Responsible Jewelry Council. Well, the whole program sounds very positive, but I was wondering, how straightforward is it? I mean, how do the companies that buy the gold actually keep tabs on what's going on the ground in the places where they source the gold? So I reached out to one of the refiners, Argo Herreus, and I talked to the CEO, Christoph Wield.
We have to know very well our partners, and therefore we need eyes and ears on the ground. We visit the sources, definitely. We have our discussions with local stakeholders, that means NGOs, with authorities, with the carriers, which brings the metal from the source to our refinery. So we have to have in place an early warning system which allows us to be intelligent in the business and to raise the red flag once we see a risk. So it's an ongoing observing of the market. It's an ongoing dialogue which we have with our partners to be proactively taking decisions regarding the business we want to do.
So yeah, it's a lot of layers and a lot of steps, isn't it?
Exactly. It's a lot of work has to be done, which is not absolutely an insurance that you never do anything wrong. Important is to act and react immediately once you see that there might be some problems. And then we always say disengagement is the last resort. So what we have to do if we see a possible wrongdoing of somebody in the chain, to try to help to improve, to tell these guys, listen, we cannot work with you if you do this and this kind of action. So please don't, for instance, if you're working together with small-scale miners, with artisanal miners, don't use mercury, because if you use mercury, we cannot take off your material. We cannot sell it in the market because there's no demand for this. So please do not use it. It's clear you have to respect the environmental, you have to protect it, you have to respect all kind of human rights, especially no child work. And once these premises are accepted by our partners, then we step in and we can do business, improving their work on the ground. Disengaging is the last resort. So if really the partner on the ground do not want to accept our policy, our rules, then our only possibility is to say no to the partner.
I wanted to know a bit more about how it works, really, and how you get these miners on board in the first place. So then I got in touch with another Swiss refiner and had a really interesting conversation with the CEO there. This is Philippe Chave from PX Pressenox.
That's a very good question asking, because one of our sponsor, Impact Client, suggested that we monitor precisely how can we be more aggressive in making sure that what we do actually encourages them to move toward formalization. And now we are in the midst of hiring an anthropologist in Peru that will be fully dedicated in spending time with those communities, understanding what are the barriers and how we can help.
I mean, I guess a lot of it is word of mouth, isn't it? People have to hear about it to know whether they want to participate.
Yeah, it does snowballs. And again, the program is still very fresh. But so far, because I've brought customers for inauguration of science lab and computer labs, and the welcome by those community was tremendous. You could see that we were touching people's hearts. That was a case of a school. They have to run 2 shifts because they are short of classroom, they are short of everything, And then you just build 2 new classrooms, you give equipment. First time those kids could access internet other than through the mobile phone of the parents. So terms of education, that brings contribution, and you could see those smiley faces, and that was very, very much appreciated. There was a few months later, for some reasons, there was some tension in the community. There was a strike. They were blocking all traffic. And the only traffic that was still allowed to transit was Dynacor's truck, because he said, you guys are supporting the community, you can pass. All the others not,
Wow, that is quite a compliment, isn't it?
Yeah.
An affirmation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the key is you need to be genuine in what you do. And if you are genuine, sooner or later, people will feel that what you're doing is with good attention, and you always, somehow pays back. Yeah.
So you collaborate with Dynacor, and they often take the raw ore and they do the initial extracting before it comes over here. So about what percentage of the gold that you work with comes from that kind of a situation where it's all very controlled by the time it gets over here in Switzerland?
That's a tiny fraction, unfortunately. Most of the gold we get is either provided by our customer or through banks, by our customer. So we are promoting very hard the artisanal gold, because now we are in a situation where we see in the luxury as well investment, there's a raising awareness about the need of doing something about artisanal gold, that companies are often very shy or opting for de-risking policies. So they say, okay, I like what you do, that's great, but not for us. We go for recycled gold, or we buy from the banks. So this is why this is so important to share those stories, because we all have a role to play.
As Philip was saying, this gold from the program is just a tiny fraction of what they work with in the refinery. And in the world, artisanal small-scale gold, that's not even a fifth of all of the world's gold. And another thing we need to remember about gold is the potential for mercury pollution. And as Mark Pieth was telling me, women are especially vulnerable to this.
For instance, in southern Peru, women are reduced to doing the most awful of jobs, like steaming off the mercury out of the gold that has been amalgamated with mercury. So they would do something extremely poisonous and usually without protective gear. Now, in this context here, the Swiss Better Gold Initiative is trying hard to help communities develop ownership of these mines, give everybody a chance to cooperate. Nothing has to be perfect at the moment. And in a way, the Swiss Better Gold Initiative is one of the positive examples, but it's by far not perfect yet.
Do you believe things will get better, say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
I have the feeling one would have the possibility of doing it. And it's comforting that the Swiss government is taking responsibility, because they have, of course, a direct way of talking to the Peruvian government. And it puts Peru under a certain pressure to cooperate, to help.
So what he's talking about there is the fact that the Swiss government and the Swiss gold industry have a partnership together through this Swiss Better Gold initiative. So this means that there's a direct link between the Swiss authorities and the authorities in those countries where that program is active. But still, Mark says that they could make better use of those connections.
On behalf of a lady who had been working in La Rinconada on women's rights, and we approached the Swiss Better Gold Initiative and said, you know what, you are 20 minutes by car away from there. Why don't you put up a women's office? It's not just the forced prostitutes. There are another 10,000 women at least who are working as kind of miners. They're called palaqueras. Those are people, they're not allowed into the mine. They're working outside and they're sifting through the rubble to find stones that still contain traces of gold. And they take them and make a living of it. It's a horrid kind of living, because imagine in winter, if it goes down minus 20 degrees centigrade, any amount of clothes you have on, you are going to be cold. It's freezing cold, and it's dangerous where they are. So Swiss Better Gold Initiative, we said you could do a bit more. You could do something, for instance, for those women there. And they said, well, that's not really what we're aiming to do. We have a different mandate. And my suggestion was, well, please think of your mandate. I've actually written that into my book as well. You might need to be a bit broader in your views.
We've heard a lot about what the Swiss Better Gold Initiative is trying to do when it comes to cleaning up the gold supply. But what about the Swiss government? Customs law has become more strict when it comes to gold imports. But Mark says there's still a lot more to do.
One issue is money laundering. And the question, shouldn't money laundering laws also apply to gold? Because having a little bar with you, a kilo bar is half the size of a chocolate bar, easily put into your pocket. It's worth 50,000. So, and you can immediately sell it like cash again in a new place. You can go over the border and so on. And the tricky thing there is Switzerland is discussing now cash transactions regarding gold. At the moment, the threshold is 100,000 Swiss francs, and they want to move it down to 15,000. Okay, that would be interesting. What is kind of flying under the radar at the moment is the raw gold. So if you have gold bars coming in from Peru, they are not under the money laundering legislation because they are not refined enough. They might be 80 or 90% gold, but they are difficult to market because the bar is uneven and it's full of what they call dirt, but dirt is silver, palladium or platinum. Maybe a bit copper, but I would prefer the whole supply chain to be under money laundering regulations, not only from the refinery downwards.
If you want to dive deeper into the secrets of the gold trade, you can read Mark Pieth's book. It's called Gold Laundering: The Dirty Secrets of the Gold Trade and How to Clean Up. And you can also listen to our episode from Peru, The Dirt on Digging for Gold. That's where we heard from my colleague, Paula Dupre-Tobias. And you should visit swissinfo.ch for the full multimedia version of Paula's story, which won a Fedosov Award for Excellence in Environmental Journalism. Well done, Paula. The Swiss Connection is a Swissinfo production. And we at Swissinfo will keep following all the latest news on Switzerland's part in the gold trade. This episode was produced by me, Susan Masika. Michele Andina composes our music, and he also found that vintage newsreel from the Swiss Federal Archives. And mixing it all up, in a good way, is our studio engineer, Danny Wheeler. Thank you for listening, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to tell your friends about us.
Do you want to polish your knowledge about Swiss elections, referendums, and political parties, while at the same time learning more about the quirks of the political system in Switzerland? If that's the case, our newsletter course is just what you need. Each week for a month, we'll send you a free installment explaining the most important details of how Swiss democracy works. Our course teaches you who is eligible to vote in Switzerland, what the different parties stand for, how election and popular vote results are implemented, and what distinguishes Swiss democracy from other political systems. Our crash course is interactive, like democracy itself. Your questions will be answered on an FAQ page, and you can debate with other users and share your inputs and opinions. We will also provide links to multimedia articles and videos to help you better understand the Swiss democratic system. Please join us and sign up for the free Democracy Crash Course newsletter at www.swissinfo.ch/democracy. That's www.swissinfo.ch/democracy.